Lauren didn't even look at me when she said it. I was at the sink in our Boise kitchen finishing the dishes like I always did. Emma's plate, my plate, the pan I'd cooked in. Normal night. Normal routine. The kind of quiet you earn after a long day when the house runs because one person keeps it running. Lauren stood by the counter with her arms folded, lips pressed into a thin line. Not tired, not rough day. This was practiced like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror and didn't want me to mess up her timing. I want a divorce. The dish towel slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. I stared at the faucet like it was going to explain what I just heard. Come again. She finally lifted her eyes. Come. Measured. Businesslike. You heard me. That's when it landed in my chest. This wasn't a fight. It was a notice, a decision already filed in her head. I was just the last person to be informed. I kept my voice flat. Okay, tell me what you think you're doing. She exhaled through her nose like I was a slow student. I'm moving forward. You're stuck in the past. I'm tired of dragging the future alone. I turned off the water and faced her. Dragging the future. Interesting. Remind me who dragged the present while you were in law school. Her jaw tightened. Don't do that. Don't do what facts. She stepped closer, still not raising her voice like that made her more correct. I worked too hard to stay small next to a man who doesn't grow. I looked at her for a long second. 5 years I'd carried the house. I'd taken Emma to school, to practice, to dentist appointments. I'd sold the inherited place my dad left me because Lauren's tuition didn't pay itself. I told myself it was an investment. Family future. And here she was reading me a script. I nodded once. You're really doing this? Yes. What about Emma? That did it. The mask cracked just enough for the real thing to show. Emma will come with me. She snapped sharp and fast. She needs stability. I can provide her a better life. I have income. A house, connections. What do you have? There it was. Not heartbreak, not sadness, a pitch, a resume. I picked up the towel, folded it slowly, and set it on the counter like I had all the time in the world. I have a daughter who knows who shows up, and I have a very short tolerance for anyone using her like a trophy. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Don't threaten me. I'm not threatening you, I replied. I'm informing you how this goes if you make Emma pay for your storyline. Her mouth twitched like she wanted to smile and couldn't. You think you're going to outplay me? I gave her a small shrug. I'm not playing. I'm adjusting. She turned away, already done with me, already living in the next chapter where she was the hero who grew and left the weight behind. I watched her walk out of the kitchen, and the part of me that still thought this was fixable went quiet. If I'd known where it was headed, I would have moved faster that very night. The next morning, I didn't beg. I didn't bargain. I did what I do on job sites when something fails. I isolate the problem, protect what matters, and stop the damage from spreading. That afternoon, I texted Lauren one sentence. We talk about Emma respectfully or we don't talk at all. She responded 10 minutes later. You don't get to set rules anymore. I smiled at the screen. She was wrong. She just didn't know it yet. A week later, Lauren had me sitting in a polished office at her firm downtown, the kind of place where everything was glass and light, and people walked like they were late to important meetings. The attorney handling the paperwork was a guy named Derek Collins. Mid-30s, perfect hair, soft hands. He spoke in a smooth tone that sounded like it had never lifted a sheet of plywood in its life. Lauren sat beside him like she belonged there. Phone in hand, legs crossed, confident posture. She didn't look at me the way a wife looks at a husband. She looked at me like a project she'd finished. Derek smiled politely. Mark. Thank you for coming in. We'll go through the agreement. Confirm the terms. Lauren cut in with a bright little laugh. I'm just glad to finally drop the last 180 pounds. Derek's smile froze for half a second like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to laugh. He chose the safe route and made a quiet "oh" sound. Lauren leaned back, eyes on me. Well, no last words, no tears. Come on, Mark. Give us something. I stared at her, not angry, not loud, just taking inventory. Lauren, I said slow and clear. If you need a performance, go hire one. I'm here to read. Her smile tightened. You're so dramatic. Funny, I replied, flipping the first page. I was thinking the same about you. Dear Rick cleared his throat, trying to regain control. We have a proposed schedule for parenting time and support. Lauren will be the primary residential parent. I lifted a hand without looking up. Stop there. Lauren's eyebrows rose. Excuse me. I looked at Derek. I'm not signing anything I haven't read, and I'm not agreeing to language that turns me into a visitor in my daughter's life. Lauren leaned forward, voice silky. Mark, this is standard. You're on job sites all day. I have a professional schedule. Emma will be with me. It makes sense. I met her eyes. You mean it makes control? Her cheek twitched. Dear Rick looked between us like he'd accidentally walked into the wrong meeting. Lauren's voice got sharper. You always think everything is about control because it usually is, I answered. Especially when you start talking about connections like Emma is a networking opportunity. Lauren scoffed. You don't understand how the world works. I slid the papers closer to me, scanning. I understand exactly how the world works. You want me quiet and predictable. You want money moving through you. You want Emma as the proof you're the main parent. And you want me to smile while you rewrite history. Derek interjected carefully. Mark, the terms include regular contact, holidays, and I looked at Lauren again. I'll sign what's fair, not what's convenient for your image. Lauren's eyes flashed. Then she forced a sweet little smile like we were on stage. You see, this is what I mean. He gets emotional. I didn't even blink. If Emma cries because of you, I said, still calm. There will be consequences. Not drama, not shouting. Consequences. The room went quiet for a beat. Lauren's confidence wobbled just for a second like she'd expected me to explode or fold, not speak like a man drawing a line in concrete. Then she recovered, lifting her phone. Are you done with your macho speech? I signed, not because she won, because I was already moving to the next step, and this paperwork was just a gate I needed opened. As I stood, Dear Rick offered his hand. I hope this process stays cooperative. I shook his hand and gave him an honest nod. Me, too, for Emma. Lauren called after me, sweet as syrup. Good luck out there, Mark. Try not to get stuck in the past. I paused at the door and looked back. Don't worry, I said. I'm not staying anywhere you can reach. I walked out and my phone buzzed before I hit the elevator. Lauren, we can do this the easy way if you behave. I typed one reply. You're confusing me with someone else. That night after Emma went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a calculator. Not because I wanted to win, because I wanted my daughter protected. First move, money. I opened a new account in my name only. No drama, no announcement. I redirected my deposit. I set up automatic transfers for Emma's needs and kept receipts like I was running a business because I was. The business was my kid's stability. Second move, income. I called a guy I'd worked with years ago, John Alvarez, a superintendent who always talked straight and never tried to sound important. He ran crews in North Dakota near Willist. He answered on the second ring. Hayes, you finally get tired of Boise. Not tired, I said. Focused. You got work. A pause. Depends. You still show up early and handle your people always. Then yeah, John replied. It's not glamorous. It's cold. It pays. That's the point. John didn't ask why. He just said, I'll text details. You'll start in 2 weeks if you're serious. I'm serious. He chuckled once. That's what I remember about you. You don't talk, you move. When I told Lauren I'd be taking a contract out of state, her reaction came fast. You're leaving. She snapped on the phone. So, you're abandoning your daughter now. That's your strategy. I sat in my truck, engine off, steady hands on the wheel. I'm taking a contract to build a cushion. Emma will be supported either way. Lauren laughed. Sharp and fake. Sure, convenient. You'll send money and disappear. Makes my job easier. I kept my tone even. I won't disappear and you don't get to call it your job. She lowered her voice like she was being generous. Mark, just accept the new reality. I'm the one with the schedule, the connections, the Lauren. I cut in. I'm not interested in your speech. Text me Emma's school calendar. I'll be present for the dates that matter. A beat of silence, then a softer tone, almost sweet. You're stressed. I get it. We can be kind about this. First illusion, a little warmth right after she felt me slip out of her grip. I didn't bite. Send the calendar. I repeated. She sighed. Fine. 2 days later, she actually sent it along with a message. Thank you for being reasonable. I stared at that line and laughed quietly to myself. Reasonable to her meant compliant. I packed for North Dakota like I was going on a long job because I was. I didn't pack anger. I packed winter gear, work gloves, and a plan. Before I left, I sat Emma down at the table. She was 14, old enough to notice everything. Young enough to blame herself for things she didn't cause. She picked at the corner of a napkin. Mom says, you're mad. I shook my head. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at your mom in the way you're thinking. This is between adults. Emma's eyes stayed on the napkin. Did I do something? No. I leaned forward just a little, voice steady. You didn't cause this. You can't fix it. Your only job is school, friends, and being a kid. My job is being your dad. She nodded slowly. So, you're leaving. I'm taking a contract for work. I corrected. I'm not leaving you. I'll call every day. You'll have what you need. If something feels wrong, you tell me. No protecting anybody. You tell me. Emma's mouth tightened. Mom gets stressed. I know, I said. And you don't have to carry that. She finally looked up. Are you coming back for my winter performance? I'll be there, I said. No hesitation. Front row if they let me. That got a small smile out of her. The kind that hurts because it's fragile. When I arrived near Willist, the work was heavy and the days were long. John ran a tight site. He didn't tolerate excuses and neither did the weather. One evening after a 12-hour shift, I called Emma. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Dad. Hey, kid. How was school? Fine. That fine had weight. I listened. What's fine mean today? I asked. A pause. Mom's busy. She's always on her phone. She gets annoyed if I ask questions. My voice stayed calm. What kind of annoyed? Like she sigh or says I'm distracting her. I kept my eyes on the motel wall. Jar relaxed. Okay. Anything else? Emma hesitated. She didn't come to my science thing. What science thing? The presentation. I told her. She said she had a client call. I let that sit for a second. Did you do it anyway? Yeah. And I did good. That's my girl. I said, I'm proud of you. She exhaled and I could hear the relief in it like she'd been holding her breath waiting for someone to care. After we hung up, I texted Lauren. Emma mentioned you missed her presentation. That doesn't happen again. She responded almost immediately. Don't micromanage my house from North Dakota. I typed back, it's not your house. It's my daughter. No reply. 2 weeks later, I flew back for Emma's winter performance. A school auditorium. Full of folding chairs and parents pretending they weren't tired. I showed up early because that's who I am. Emma spotted me and her face lit up. She rushed over and hugged me quick like she didn't want to make it a thing in front of everyone. You came, she whispered. I told you, I replied. I don't say things I don't mean. Lauren arrived late, wearing a blazer like she was heading to a meeting. She scanned the room, saw me, and her mouth tightened. She sat 2 rows back, phone in hand, tapping like the screen was more important than her kid. A woman next to me leaned over. She had a kind face and teacher energy. "You're Mark, right? Emma's dad." I nodded. "Yeah, and you are Miss Patel," she said. "I run the drama program." "Emma's solid, quiet leadership." "Sounds like her," I replied. Miss Patel glanced toward Lauren. "It's good you're here. She's been carrying a lot." "Emma." "Yeah," Miss Patel said softly. "Sometimes kids get put in the middle without anyone saying it out loud." I kept my expression neutral. I don't plan to let that continue. The performance started. Emma was focused, steady, voice clear. I watched her do what she does, handle herself. Like she'd learned early that she couldn't wait for adults to show up. When it ended, I stood and clapped. Lauren clapped too, distracted, already stepping toward the exit. Emma ran over, eyes bright. "How was it?" "You were excellent," I told her. "You were the most prepared person on that stage." She smiled, then glanced over her shoulder. "Mom has to take a call." Lauren lifted her phone like proof. "I'm working, Emma." Emma nodded quickly. "It's okay." But the way she said it, careful, protective, told me everything. On the drive back to Lauren's place, Emma stared out the window. "Mom's just different," she murmured. "Different how?" I asked. "She gets mad over little stuff." Emma said, like if I leave a cup or if I ask for help with homework, she says I'm being needy. I kept my hand steady on the wheel. "And what do you do?" I try to not bother her. I nodded once. "New rule," I said. "You don't shrink to fit someone's mood. If you need something, you ask. If she reacts wrong, you tell me." Emma didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "Okay." When I dropped her off, Lauren stepped onto the porch. "So," she called out, "you got your little dad moment." I got out of the truck and shut the door gently. It wasn't a moment. It's a job. I do it. Lauren smiled like she was amused. "You should try doing it without controlling everyone." I looked at her calmly. "You should try showing up." Her smile vanished. "Don't talk to me like that." "Then don't act like that," I replied. I drove back to the airport with my mind already working. Emma's words weren't a crisis yet, but they were signals. And I don't ignore signals. Back in North Dakota, the money started stacking up. I sent support on time every time. I mailed Emma small packages, school supplies, snacks, a hoodie in her size because I knew teens grow overnight like they're trying to escape their own bodies. Then one night near midnight, my phone buzzed. "Emma, Dad, can I ask something?" I sat up in bed. "Always." Another message came in. A photo. Her sneakers were split at the side, sole peeling like it had given up. Another photo. Jeans worn thin at the knees. Another, her winter coat with a tear near the seam, stuffing poking out. My stomach went cold, not with fear, with clarity. Emma texted again. "I don't want you mad at Mom. She's stressed. She said, we'll get new stuff soon. I need money this month, too. Please don't make it a thing." I stared at the photos. This wasn't one missed shopping trip. This was neglect dressed up as later. I typed back, "You did the right thing telling me you're not in trouble. Stay with me for 5 minutes." I opened an app, ordered new shoes, jeans, a coat. I paid extra for fast shipping. Then, I sent Emma a screenshot of the order. "On its way, you don't ask twice." She replied almost immediately. "Thank you. Please don't fight with Mom." I didn't answer that part. Instead, I called Lauren on video. She didn't pick up. I called again. Third time, she answered with irritation on her face. "What?" she snapped. "It's late." I held my phone up so she could see the pictures on my screen. "Explain." Lauren blinked. "Where did you get that?" From our daughter, I replied. The one you said you could provide a better life for. Her eyes narrowed. She's exaggerating. Those shoes are split. I said that coat is torn. That's not exaggeration. That's a kid walking around trying to pretend she's fine. Lauren rolled her eyes. Mark, don't start. I've had a rough month. I kept my voice level. Where is the support going, Lauren? She laughed once, short and defensive. Are you auditing me now? Yes, I replied. Starting tonight. Her expression shifted. I didn't know her stuff was that bad. Stop, I said. You live with her. Lauren's jaw worked. Searching for a new angle. I've been behind on bills. Clients slowed down. Rent went up. It's temporary. Temporary doesn't eat, I replied. Temporary doesn't keep a kid warm. Lauren's shoulders dropped a fraction. I thought I'd catch up before you noticed. There it was. Not I didn't know. Before you noticed, I stared at her, so you used it. She didn't answer. Which was an answer. Lauren's voice softened suddenly. Careful. Mark, I'm asking for help. Maybe you can come back just for a while. Emma misses you. We need support. First illusion again, but stronger now. Soft voice. Family words like she didn't spend months treating me like a leftover piece of furniture. I kept my face neutral. I'm not your safety net. I'm Emma's father. Lauren swallowed. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we could make this easier. No, I replied. Here's what we're doing. We meet in person. Neutral place. A cafe. Tomorrow afternoon. You explain exactly what happened. No speeches. Lauren looked offended, then worried. You're acting like I'm some kind of like you're an adult. I cut in. Be there. I ended the call before she could turn it into an argument. The next day, I flew back early, took a shower, and drove straight to a small cafe off a busy road. Nothing fancy, just coffee and people trying to mind their business. Lauren walked in 10 minutes late. No blazer, no heels, hair pulled back like she didn't have time for the performance. She saw me and paused like she was hoping I'd be softer in person. She slid into the chair across from me. Hi. I nodded once. Start talking. Lauren took a breath. I used some of the support money. Some. I echoed. She looked away. Okay. More than some. I leaned back. Why? Her face tightened. Because everything stacked up. Clients backed out. I had expenses. I thought I could fix it before it became a problem. I lifted an eyebrow and Emma's shoes didn't become a problem. Lauren's voice sharpened. Don't make me the villain. I'm trying. I don't need a villain, I replied. I need a parent who handles priorities. Lauren's eyes got glossy. She lowered her voice. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't want it to be like this. I need help cleaning it up. There it is, I said. Not I miss you. Not I miss us. It's help me clean it up. Lauren flinched. That's not fair. I nodded toward her hands. They were empty. No phone. No power pose. Just a woman realizing her plan had cracks. You wanted Emma with you because it made you look right, I said quietly. You wanted money flowing through you because it kept you in charge. And you wanted me far enough away to pay without asking questions. Lauren's mouth opened, then closed. She tried a different tone, gentle, almost tender. Mark, you're a good dad. I never denied that. You can be part of this. We can reset. I gave her a small, tired smile. Reset. That's cute. You don't reset after you make a kid ask for money at midnight like she's begging a stranger. Lauren's eyes filled. I didn't mean to hurt her. But you did, I replied. So now I act. Her head snapped up. What does that mean? It means I document, I said. It means I stop trusting words. It means Emma's needs don't go through you anymore. Lauren's breathing quickened. You can't just take her. I'm not taking her, I answered. I'm protecting her. Lauren leaned forward, voice low and urgent. Mark, please don't do this. It'll ruin me. I stood, pushed my chair in, and put cash on the table for my coffee. That's your problem, I said. You should have thought about that when you used your daughter's money like it was your personal buffer. Lauren grabbed my wrist as I turned. Her hand was cold. Mark. I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. Let go. She released me like she'd touched something sharp. I walked out, got into my truck, and made the call I should have made the first time Lauren turned our family into a transaction. Rachel Monroe answered with a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone who didn't get rattled. Monroe, this is Mark Hayes, I said. I need help changing how this is structured immediately. Okay, Rachel replied. No surprise, no drama. Tell me the facts, not the feelings. So, I did. Photos, messages, dates, the transfer history. Emma's texts asking me not to get mad. The calendar Lauren sent like she was doing me a favor. Rachel listened and then said, your instincts are solid. You're not punishing anyone. You're responding to measurable neglect. Good, I replied. Because I'm done debating that week. I moved with purpose. I pulled statements. I saved screenshots. I printed shipping confirmations. I asked Miss Patel for attendance notes on the missed school event. I created a folder like I was building a case for a contractor who swore a job was done when it wasn't. Lauren sensed it before she knew it. 2 nights later, she showed up at my place in Boise. Late, cold outside, porch light catching her face as she stood there like she was auditioning for sympathy. When I opened the door, she stepped forward fast. Tears, shaking voice, hands reaching for my arms like touch was a key. Mark, please. She whispered. Don't do this. I made mistakes. I'm scared. I can fix it. Second illusion. Heavier, more emotional, more urgent. A full-body attempt to get access back. I didn't step away dramatically. I didn't raise my voice. I just stayed where I was, blocking the doorway. Lauren, I said calmly. You didn't forget a bill. You forgot your daughter. Her face twisted. That's not true. You let her walk around in busted shoes, I replied. And then you hoped I wouldn't notice. Lauren grabbed my sleeve. I was drowning. I didn't have anyone. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. You had Emma, and you still chose yourself. Her tears rolled harder. I'm her mom. You can't cut me out. I'm not cutting you out, I said. I'm cutting the control out. Lauren's voice rose. So what? You're going to make me look like a monster. I kept my tone even. You did that part on your own. She tried to push past me. Let me talk to Emma. Not tonight, I replied. She's asleep. And you're not coming in here waving emotions like they're credentials. Lauren stared at me like she couldn't believe I wasn't folding. Mark, I can change. I nodded once slow. You can prove it over time from a distance. She took a step back, breathing hard. You're doing this to get back at me. I tilted my head slightly. I'm doing this because I'm the adult in the room. Lauren's face hardened. Tears dried fast when they stopped working. She looked at me with that same cold calculation I saw in the kitchen. You think you're smarter than me, she said. I think I'm clearer than you, I replied. There's a difference. I closed the door gently, not as a dramatic slam, just a final movement, a boundary with hinges. The next day, Lauren started texting like she was managing public relations. Can we talk like adults? You're blowing this up. Emma is fine. I answered one time. All communication goes through Rachel now. She called. I didn't pick up. She showed up at Emma's school and tried to smile like everything was normal. Miss Patel called me afterward. Mark, she said, voice careful. Lauren came by asking questions. Emma looked tense. I exhaled slowly. Thank you for telling me, Emma's a good kid, Miss Patel added. But she's trying to keep everyone happy. That's heavy for a 14-year-old. I know, I replied. That's why I'm taking the weight. Then the final facts surfaced. And it wasn't because Lauren confessed. It was because numbers don't care about anyone's story. Rachel sat across from me in her office. Neat desk, no clutter. Eyes focused. Mark, she said, sliding a printout toward me. There's more. I looked down. Transactions, not just rent, not just utilities. Repeated payments to a name I didn't recognize at first. Kevin Brooks, phone service, insurance, flights that lined up with weekends. Emma had told me her mom was busy and out for work stuff. I stared at the page, then looked up at Rachel. So, while Emma's coat is falling apart, Rachel nodded once. Money intended for Emma went elsewhere repeatedly. My voice stayed low and steady. Who is he? Rachel's expression didn't change. A man Lauren has financial ties to. That's what the records show. I sat back, not shocked, just finished. Like the last screw dropped into place and the whole structure became undeniable. Rachel leaned forward slightly. This changes the evaluation of primary caregiving. It's not about adult relationships. It's about choices that left a child unsupported. Good, I said. Because I'm not here to discuss her feelings. I'm here to move Emma into a stable life. Rachel nodded. Then that's what we do. The hearing wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no movie speeches, just documentation, questions, and a decision made by someone who had no reason to protect Lauren's ego. Lauren walked in wearing her professional armor again. Blazer, straight posture, controlled face. She glanced at me like she wanted to see fear. I gave her nothing. I wasn't there as her ex-husband. I was there as Emma's father. When the transactions to Kevin Brooks were laid out, Lauren's composure slipped. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes darted. Derek Collins, the same office guy from before, stood nearby, looking like he'd swallowed a bad idea. Lauren tried to explain. It was complicated. It was temporary. I planned to. Rachel's voice stayed calm. The child's needs were not met. The funds were redirected. The pattern is documented. Lauren turned toward me, eyes bright with panic. Mark, you're really doing this? I met her gaze steady. You did it first, I replied. I'm just ending it. That was the moment she realized the game was over. Not because I yelled. Because I didn't. The order came down. Emma would live with me full-time. Lauren would contribute financially and follow structured conditions for contact moving forward. No more free access. No more pretending. No more using motherhood as a status badge while the kid goes without basics. Outside afterward, Lauren stepped in front of me, voice sharp. You're proud of yourself. I adjusted Emma's backpack on my shoulder because she leaned it on me without thinking like she finally could. I'm proud of my daughter, I replied. And I'm relieved she won't have to apologize for your choices anymore. Lauren's eyes flashed. She'll hate you for this. I looked at her for a long second. No, I said, she'll understand. Maybe not today, but one day. Emma walked up beside me, quiet but present. Lauren's face shifted, softer for a heartbeat. Lauren said, forcing warmth. Come here, sweetheart. Emma didn't move. She just glanced at me like she was checking the rule. I nodded once. Emma stepped forward and gave her mom a quick, careful hug. Not cold, not cruel, just guarded. Lauren looked at me over Emma's shoulder like she wanted to punish me with her eyes. I kept my voice low and final. Lauren, I said, you wanted control more than you wanted responsibility. You don't get both. I took Emma's hand and walked her to the truck. On the drive back, Emma stared at the road for a while. Then she said quietly, I didn't want you to fight. I didn't fight, I replied. I handled it. She nodded, lips pressed together. I didn't like asking you for money. I know, I said. You won't have to do that again. Emma looked out the window, then back at me. Are we okay? I glanced at her, then back to the road. We're solid, I told her. I don't build things to fall apart. Months later, life got quieter in the best way. Emma had her own room at my place, a real routine, real groceries, and clothes that fit without her trying to hide frayed edges. Patel emailed me updates about school, and for the first time in a long time, Emma started inviting friends over without asking permission, like she was borrowing space. Work stayed steady, too. That North Dakota contract turned into a better role back in Idaho. More pay, better hours. John called one day and said, "You're still the same, Hayes. You just walk straighter now." I told him, turns out peace weighs less than nonsense. And yeah, I met someone later. Her name is Dana. She's straightforward. No games, no speeches. The first time she came over for dinner, she looked at Emma and said, "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to be respectful in this house." Emma nodded like she understood exactly what that meant, Lauren. She kept her title and her attitude for a while, but the comfort changed. It always does when the free ride ends. She didn't get to be the main character parent anymore. She didn't get to play successful while someone else paid the hidden costs. The structured contact forced her to show up consistently or not at all. And she hated that because consistency doesn't clap for you. Every now and then she'd text something like, "Can we start over?" or "I miss how things were." I never replied to those. Because I don't go backward to make someone feel powerful. The last time I saw her in person. Nodded, lips pressed together. "I didn't like asking you for money." "I know," I said. "You won't have to do that again." Emma looked out the window, then back at me. "Are we okay?" I glanced at her, then back to the road. "We're solid," I told her. I don't build things to fall apart. Months later, life got quieter in the best way. Emma had her own room at my place, a real routine, real groceries, and clothes that fit without her trying to hide frayed edges. Patel emailed me updates about school, and for the first time in a long time, Emma started inviting friends over without asking permission, like she was borrowing space. Work stayed steady, too. That North Dakota contract turned into a better role back in Idaho. More pay, better hours. John called one day and said, "You're still the same, Hayes. You just walk straighter now." I told him, turns out peace weighs less than nonsense. And yeah, I met someone later. Her name is Dana. She's straightforward. No games, no speeches. The first time she came over for dinner, she looked at Emma and said, "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to be respectful in this house." Emma nodded like she understood exactly what that meant, Lauren. She kept her title and her attitude for a while, but the comfort changed. It always does when the free ride ends. She didn't get to be the main character parent anymore. She didn't get to play successful while someone else paid the hidden costs. The structured contact forced her to show up consistently or not at all. And she hated that because consistency doesn't clap for you. Every now and then she'd text something like, "Can we start over?" or "I miss how things were." I never replied to those. Because I don't go backward to make someone feel powerful. The last time I saw her in person, she tried one more time in the parking lot after dropping Emma off. "Mark," she said, voice controlled. "You really think you won?" I shut my truck door and looked at her calmly. "This wasn't a competition," I replied. "It was a responsibility test." Her eyes narrowed and I failed, right? I held her gaze steady. "You answered your own question years ago," I said. "I just stopped covering for it." Then I turned, walked back into my house, and locked the door. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because respect isn't something you beg for at 41. It's something you enforce once and then you live in the quiet that follows.